You're listening to Sports Jam, recorded April 22nd, 2012, Episode 34, The NFL Draft. I'm Rob Steele, and welcome to the MyFantasyLeague.com NFL Mock Draft. With the first pick of the NFL Draft, the Indianapolis Colts have selected Andrew Luck. With the second pick, the Redskins have taken RG3. Now that the first two picks are out of the way, let's go to the draft room with Chad Cetera, Stephen Peffer, Vince O'Connor, and from Fantasy Football Today, special guest Doug Orth. Gentlemen, the Minnesota Vikings are now on the clock.
Gentlemen, the mock draft has begun. Two picks are out of the way. The Vikings, in my opinion, are going to take offensive tackle Matt Kalil out of USC. Team needs offensive line help. You draft a quarterback of the future in Christian Ponder, way ahead of what he should have been last year. And Adrian Peterson coming off a massive injury. They need some help to protect Ponder, get Peterson back to the way he was. I'm taking Matt Kalil with this pick.
I like the pick. I like the pick also, Chad. If they don't trade the pick, that's exactly where they're going to go. I wouldn't ask them to trade down with Kansas City and get a couple more picks. But if they stay there, that's who they take.
I'm also on board with the Matt Kalil pick. I can understand the consideration of Morris Claiborne there, simply because you're in a division with Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, and Jay Cutler, and all those guys, all those teams have the top-notch receivers. But I think what you have to ask yourself in the end is about positional scarcity. And there's enough. This draft is deep enough in corners where you get somebody like a Josh Robinson in the second round. So Matt Kalil's the pick for me as well.
Well, I'll go against the grain, I guess, because I say Morris Claiborne because they are playing against Aaron Rodgers, Jay Cutler, and Matthew Stafford 2 times a year, so 6 games. You need to go with a big corner. They gotta have somebody to defend them. They have the worst secondary in the whole NFL, so I go Morris Claiborne.
I will say, if I can butt in there once again, they should have Chris Cook coming back, which is going to help matters in that regard. As we know, Chris Cook is showing us some things last year up until he got himself into a little bit of trouble.
I mean, I'll tell you this, guys. I kind of like. I'm going to stick with my pick of Kalil, but I do like Steven's reasoning behind Morris Claiborne. You can't have too many quality corners in this league, and look at the Jets. They've got 2 potentially Hall of Fame corners. It solidifies the secondary against half-decent quarterbacks, and in that division, when you go up against Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, and Jay Cutler 6 times in the year, I wouldn't doubt if they go with Claiborne. Minnesota hasn't really committed to Kalil yet, but I'm sticking with Kalil, even though Claiborne would be a great selection.
Pick number 4, the Cleveland Browns.
Everybody's going to tell you that Trent Richardson should be the one picked here. I completely disagree. Cleveland needs defense. Yeah, their secondary was good. They have an opportunity, but just like I argued with Claiborne possibly going to Minnesota, I'm thinking Maurice Claiborne goes to the Cleveland Browns here. You can get a running back later in the draft with a Doug Martin, James from Oregon. I think when you look at Cleveland, they need defense. Defense wins, and in that nasty division with Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Cincinnati, defense is what got them to the top. Defense is what Cleveland needs to get them to the top.
Well, I couldn't disagree with you more on that. Have you looked at this team, Chad? They are in dire need of some offensive weapons. And they haven't had a running back there. Peyton Hillis, big deal, he's gone. But they haven't had a running back there like Trent Richardson in a long time. So I just don't think they can pass him up.
Yeah, gentlemen, I'm on board with Trent Richardson as well. I don't agree with the comparisons I don't agree with the assessment that he's the best running back in draftable running back since Adrian Peterson. But I will say the position that Cleveland's in right now is a lot like the Rams. You simply need playmakers. You simply need to take the best player available for 3 to 4 rounds at the very least, if not the entire draft. Trent Richardson, for the most part, if he's not the top prospect in the draft, he's one of the top 2 or 3. And you get Richardson, you get maybe another receiver, maybe you get a quarterback later in the first round. You've you've definitely improved your standing inside that division.
Doug, let me ask you a question. Do you see Cleveland possibly trading this pick and getting more picks since they have so many needs on the offensive side of the ball?
I wouldn't be surprised. At the same time, when you can get arguably the top prospect in the draft, I think you owe it to yourself to do it, especially when you're a team as in much hurt as Cleveland is.
I mean, you're trying to protect Colt McCoy. So since Morris Claiborne, I have him going to the Vikings. You take Matt Khalil right here. You take a guy who's going to give you 10 years of great offensive line play, and you take Matt Khalil to protect Colt McCoy.
The problem I would have with that is, generally speaking, if you believe in valuing a position, you're probably not going to take a right tackle that high.
I mean, why did the Vikings take him at 3 then?
Because he's going to be a left tackle for the Vikings. There's no way that Cleveland's going to move Joe Thomas to right tackle. Just because the Bengals did it a few years ago with Andre Smith does not make it right.
I'll tell you this, guys. I'm still not going to go away from my pick, but I kind of like Steven's thinking here. When you build an offensive line with Joe Thomas and a Matt Khalil, who cares who your running back is? I mean, they do have Montero Hardesty, who got hurt, who could come back and be something special. Maybe not, but he could, with those two big boys up front, he could be something of value to the Cleveland, and wait till the second round to pick somebody good.
So next, number 5. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are now on the clock.
Here's where I have Trent Richardson going. With Luck, Griffin, Khalil, and Claiborne going off the board, Tampa Bay hits a home run here. Yes, Trent Richardson should go to Cleveland. I don't have him going there. I have him going here to Tampa Bay. You've got, LeGarrette Blount, who decent, but fumbles the ball more often than, I don't know, Aunt Jemima carrying a stick of butter. Trent Richardson's a perfect fit for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that offense all of a sudden becomes, I don't know, very competitive with the Saints and Falcons in the NFC South.
I personally think, Chad, that Richardson's not going to be there. If he is there, I agree with your assessment that Tampa Bay will take him. I just don't think he's going to be there. So I think Morris Claiborne falls right into the lap, and they can't pass him up.
I'll almost pretty much agree with what Vince said. If Richardson's there, he's the pick. I'm not crazy about – I do like Claiborne as a prospect. I'm not crazy about Tampa Bay going after him simply because they do have – for a team picking in the top 5, they actually do have a fair amount of depth at that position. But especially at the top in the draft, you owe it to yourself to acquire as much talent as possible. And you have to take one of the 6 blue-chip players in this draft, 5, depending on what you feel about Justin Blackmon. Anyway, so you got Rondé Barber getting older. You got Aqib Talib. You don't know what his legal situation is. So now it's basically down to, I believe, Eric Wright, who they signed as a free agent, and Morris Claiborne. And as we said earlier in this draft, you can't really have too many good cover corners. So Morris Claiborne is the pick for me here as well.
As LeGarrette Blount killed me in my fantasy league last year, I say take Trent Richardson because he destroyed me. He was the worst running back in fantasy, I believe, because I get 0 points with him every week. So I'm going to take Trent right here, and I think that's where he's going to go.
Gentlemen, let's juggle this. We talked about fantasy value there. You've got Tampa Bay, who just signed Vincent Jackson, and if Trent Richardson does go to Cleveland, and you want to add depth with Claiborne, what is the likelihood or the possibility that a Justin Blackmon gets taken here with this pick? You solidify what now would be a great receiving core for Josh Freeman. Again, another opportunity for Tampa Bay to be great on offense.
Well, Chad, why would they do that? They just went out in free agency and signed Jackson.
I'm a Bills fan. Why would they take C.J. Spiller when they also have Marshawn Lynch?
Well, that's Buffalo. That's not Tampa. There's 2 different universes.
Because Tampa Bay's GM is not Buddy Nix. That's why. No, seriously.
There's another guy that doesn't like the Bills on this show.
No, I would. It's not the worst idea in the world. But a couple things. First of all, you have Mike Williams and Aurelius Ben, who you just drafted, I believe it was in 2010. So as far as I won't say they don't need more talent, but they're fine when they have as many weaknesses as they do. They have other places to look. Secondly, Greg Schiano is coming in there to install a run-heavy offense, which is why, again, Trent Richardson would be the pick if he was there. And certainly if they don't go running back here, they probably will in the second or third round. But getting back to the point, though, Greg Schiano wants to run the ball and then hit teams with play action over the top with Vincent Jackson and Mike Williams. So Justin Blackmon makes sense as a possession receiver in that offense, if you want to call him that, but he would only be a part-time player initially for him. That's why I would go against that. All right.
Pick number 6, the St. Louis Rams.
All right, when you make a trade like you did, moving down 4 spots, and still have the opportunity to pick the guy that you would have probably taken at number 2, the St. Louis Rams are going to have a receiver for Sam Bradford. Justin Blackmon is this selection here. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Jeff Fisher needs a target for Sam Bradford in that offense. They have nobody else to throw to. Blackmon has to be the pick.
This is real easy for me, and I'm gonna shut up. I agree with you totally.
Okay, I'm going contrarian here for you gentlemen. I'm going to hit you with the fun fact. When Jeff Fisher was in Tennessee, I believe he was there 16 years. Do you know what position he targeted more than any other?
Wide receiver.
Tight end.
Defensive line.
Yeah, that was my guess.
You look at St. Louis, and they did themselves a favor by getting Trevor Laws in free agency. They've done themselves a favor over the last couple of years getting Chris Long. They've done themselves a favor over the last couple of years getting Robert Quinn and Chris Long in the draft. And now you got a chance to get a penetrating defensive tackle for a defensive-minded coach. The other issue I have with Justin Blackmon, and I had Justin Blackmon there for quite a while, is that he's not significantly better than Michael Floyd, and I'm not sure he's significantly better than a receiver that can get in the second round where they have 2 picks.
I have Justin Blackmon going to St. Louis. Bradford needs a good receiver to throw to. I'm going with Blackmon.
Pick number 7, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Jacksonville needs help for Blaine Gabbert. Yeah, you would think that they need offensive help, but in my opinion, they need to go defense. And Quentin Couples from North Carolina, although he's in some eyes falling off the draft chart and falling lower, I still think that Jacksonville thinks highly of him. Couples is the pick I think Jacksonville's going to take.
I like the defensive call that you had there, but I like Fletcher Cox. Doug's pick going to St. Louis. I like him dropping one more pick and going to Jacksonville. They need some help there, and I think this guy's going to provide what they need to fill in a hole right there on the defensive line. So I like Fletcher Cox there.
Gentlemen, I went ahead and went with Stephon Gilmore, the quarterback from South Carolina, and I agree with the pick at receiver. I think if any team needs receiver early, it's probably Jacksonville. Again, what I said with St. Louis, though. Justin Blackmon, Michael Floyd, not a significant difference between each other. And then you look at somebody who might be available in the second round for him. Stephon Gilmore, according to some draft nicks, is as good, if not better, than Morris Claiborne. And so I think that represents a heck of a lot of value there for him. So Stephon Gilmore for me.
I'm going to go since Khalil's gone, I think the second best lineman in the draft is David DeCastro. And Mike Mularkey likes to run the ball when he was at Atlanta with Michael Turner. So I'm going to go with the Jags taking David DeCastro.
You don't think that's a little high for DeCastro?
No, I don't believe so. He's the second best lineman in the draft, and Mike Mularkey he's going to run the ball first and pass second.
Yeah, but there's a whole lot more talented players out there. I got DeCastro in the first round, but mid-first round, not up there.
I like what Steven's thinking. It's just too high for a guard, though. And I don't see another lineman on the board, including Riley Reef or Jonathan Martin, that deserves that kind of pick.
Pick number 8, the Miami Dolphins.
The Miami Dolphins pick is brought to you by MyFantasyLeague.com. MyFantasyLeague.com is the most customizable fantasy football league management system on the web today. Visit them at www.myfantasyleague.com. And the reason why they're the MyFantasyLeague.com pick, every single one of us has the Miami Dolphins, and I think everybody in the universe has the Miami Dolphins taking Ryan Tannehill, quarterback from Texas A&M. Doug, you're the fantasy football expert. Does Ryan Tannehill, first of all, does he give Miami a quarterback of the future? And two is, what kind of fantasy value is Tannehill going to give the Dolphins or any fantasy owners out there?
All right, does he give him the quarterback of the future? Yeah. If that sounds like
on that.
Unless somebody else better comes along.
If they have, considering their situation, considering the fact that Mike Sherman's going to be was his coach in Texas A&M, and he's going to be his offensive coordinator here, it's as good as they're going to do this year. I'm not, like many others, I'm not sold on a quarterback that had a second-round grade and moves his way all the way into the top 10. That being said, if just like the Vikings last year or just like the Titans last year, if you quote-unquote overdraft a guy and then they end up playing like a first-rounder, no one's going to care in 3 or 4 years. Secondly, you asked if he was a good fantasy pick. This year, I expect him to his season to play out a lot like Jake Locker's, in that he might see he might see his time be very inconsistent this year, but I would expect no later than next year for him to be the full-time starter. With his athleticism, yeah, I could see he would be a good dynasty league pick, but I wouldn't take him in redraft leagues, I don't think.
In my opinion, I hope the Dolphins suck and still take Tannehill, so then they can figure out that they've got better quarterbacks in next year's draft. There's plenty of them that they could use. They can use Matt Moore this year and let a team like Kansas City try to sneak up and take Tannehill. Just my thought, but I'm glad I'm not a fan of the Dolphins.
Pick number 9, the Carolina Panthers are now on the clock.
All right, gentlemen, although Cam Newton needs a weapon, and this could be an opportune time for a Michael Floyd to perk his draft positioning, I really think that the defense needs a little help. You know, you've got Atlanta and New Orleans in there, and now you got more weapons in Tampa Bay. Fletcher Cox has been climbing up the draft boards. As we've heard already today, Doug and Vince both have Fletcher Cox going before this point. I've got Fletcher Cox going right here to the Carolina Panthers. I mean, the guy's 6'4", 300-plus pounds, plug the middle of the field. Fletcher Cox is going to be a fabulous player, and I think the Panthers are going to take him.
Yeah, you know what, Chad? I think every single one of us have a defensive tackle going here, and I like Quentin Copples here.
Yeah, I'm going with the defensive tackle as well. I'm going with Michael Brockers, simply because I have Fletcher Cox gone already. I had Fletcher Cox mocked to Carolina for a long time. Anyway, with his stock going up, I decided to obviously go a different route with Brockers. Brockers, I believe, is 6'5", 320. Depending on who you talk to, he's already NFL ready at stopping the run. And lo and behold, what does Carolina need more than anything right now? Somebody who can stand up against the run. So Michael Brockers pick here for me.
I think Carolina goes astray. I mean, they're going to take a defensive tackle, but I think they're going to take Dontari Poe from Memphis.
Pick number 10, the Buffalo Bills.
Alrighty, gentlemen, you know, this pick has a lot of meaning to me, and rumor out of Buffalo is they could go anywhere with this one. A wide receiver, and Michael Floyd, if he's available, could be the pick. I've even heard of Stephon Gilmore might be able to pop up there because we know their corners are well under average, especially last year when they got lit up by the Patriots at the end of the season. But they give up Demetrius Bell. They've traded Jason Peters over the last couple of years. Buffalo needs a left tackle. Riley Reif from Iowa fits that bill at 6'6", 280 pounds. Reif gives the newly signed, highly overpriced Ryan Fitzpatrick some protection. Hey, gives C.J. Spiller some running room. Oh, wait, they have Fred Jackson, too. So I look for the Bills to take offensive tackle here.
Sound like a typical Buffalo Bill fan.
Sounds like a lot of bitterness about previous Buffalo Bill decisions here. I don't know about this. No, believe it or not, and I agree with what you're saying. Buffalo could go in any direction here. I had Mark Barron actually mocked here up until yesterday, as kind of an avenue to help Buffalo guard against Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez. I ultimately went with Justin Blackmon because you've got David Nelson in the slot, you've got Stevie Johnson at one outside receiver, and then you got Donald Jones. And I don't think anybody, including the Bills, are buying Donald Jones as a legitimate starting receiver. So Justin Blackmon doesn't have quite the deep speed as somebody like Michael Floyd does, but who's the better receiver is what you have to ask yourself. And if you're Ryan Fitzpatrick and you kind of got a below average arm to be nice, what could be better than two run after the catch guys like Stevie Johnson and Justin Blackmon? So that's my pick.
If that happens, Doug, trust me, I will come through this internet line. I'll give you a big hug because I'd love to see Buffalo have an explosive player like Justin Black.
And if I can say one other thing about the Riley Reef pick, I would Riley Reef is who I had before Mark Barron. The problem is I think Reef is dropping, and if Arizona doesn't take him, I could see him landing in the 20s. To me, Riley Reef is the right tackle only, and as I said before, I think with Steven, it's too high for a right tackle.
Pick number 11, the Kansas City Chiefs.
Well, here's where I think Kansas City is going to take an offensive lineman. David DeCastro, I know, Vince, you had mentioned earlier that it was too high of a pick when Steven had him going at number 7. But DeCastro, I mean, he's a guard. He's got great prospects. And, I mean, he's been protecting Andrew Luck for the last 3 years. I mean, he's 6'5", 310 pounds. They're comparing him to the great Steve Hutchinson. So why not? You need a guard in Kansas City. Heck, you're going to get Jamal Charles back. And heck, you never know. That they need line help. DeCastro is the second best lineman out there. There you go.
Hey, Chad, let me ask you a question. Who's the biggest welcoming committee for Peyton Manning in Denver? And Kansas City's going to look at this, and they need some corner help here. I think they go with Stephon Gilmore. With Peyton Manning in this division, you need to solidify that. And, you know, losing what they've lost there, I think this is a need for them. And like everybody else has said beforehand, you can't have too many of these guys. So I like Stephon Gilmore right here in this slot.
I think I can make this fairly short on my end. I initially had DeCastro mocked to the Chiefs. Makes a ton of sense with Brandon Albert and DeCastro on the left side. However, I went ahead and went with Luke Kuechly based on the whole positional scarcity and positional importance that I've kind of mentioned earlier. I think I put more value into a good guard than most people, but that doesn't mean the NFL does. So anyway, Luke Kuechly, possibly the best pass coverage linebacker in the draft since Brian Urlacher. He has a few weaknesses. Maybe he needs to shore up in the run game, but put him next to Derek Johnson, you got yourself a pretty good linebacking duo.
Yeah, I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to go defense, and I think they'll take Fletcher Cox. I don't know why they wouldn't. He's still available in my draft, so I'm going to go with Fletcher Cox.
Pick number 12, the Seattle Seahawks.
In the offseason, Seattle Seahawks lost inside linebacker David Hawthorne. Obviously, they need to replace him. And just like we had talked about earlier and Doug said, Luke Kuechly is the best cover middle inside linebacker in the draft coming out of Boston College. You know, he fills a position that Seattle desperately needs. Pete Carroll and the Seahawks are going to take Luke Kuechly out of Boston College.
I agree with your pick right there, Chad. I have him slotted in the same spot there.
I'll be on board with that too. I do have to throw a curveball at the end here. Obviously, Kuechly's there. He's the pick. I don't have Kuechly there, obviously, and I have so little conviction in the pick I'm making here. But I'm going Quentin Coples partially because obviously Kuechly's not there. But Coples, standout defensive tackle his junior year. They move him out to defensive end. He goes through a lot of chaos there with the North Carolina program. And for one reason or another, his production's down across the board his senior year. I think Seattle's going to trust Pete Carroll to motivate the boy, and they're going to take their chances on, well, let's say a top 5 talent, because that's what he is.
I think Pete Carroll's going to take Melvin Ingram. Pete Carroll can use him inside and out. He had 25 tackles behind the line in 2011. I like Melvin Ingram.
Pick number 13, the Arizona Cardinals.
Now, a lot of people and a lot of the experts are saying Arizona's going to go wide receiver here. You've got Michael Floyd out there, and yeah, I think that could be the pick that Arizona goes, but you spent a lot of money and a lot of picks on Kevin Kolb last year, and I think it was every other game Kevin Kolb was sitting on the bench not knowing if he was still in Philadelphia or not. At 6'8", 300 pounds, Mike Adams out of Ohio State is a huge improvement on that offensive line. A lot of people think Mike Adams will be a high pick going here, but, I mean, they need help, and they need big boys. They've got a running game in Beanie Wells that is starting to establish. You've got receiver help already with Larry Fitzgerald. Mike Adams protects Kevin Kolb. Arizona's offense all of a sudden gets better just because they're protecting a guy they spent a lot of money on.
I like them going offensive line here because they are horrible, just like you said. But I like them taking Jonathan Martin from Stanford, 6'5" and 312 pounds. He's going to fill a need just like your guy will, Chad. But I think it's Jonathan Martin.
Well, sign me up for offensive tackle as well. Unfortunately, I'm going to go against my first two friends here and say Mike Adams, with what's been coming out about him and some of his decision making, probably is going to be in the second round. He might actually be available to them in the second round. Jonathan Martin, I like him as a left tackle only. You don't get too many of those, but strong in pass protection, not so great in the running game. Arizona behind Beanie Wells is going to want somebody who can block well in the running game. To me, that's Riley Reef.
And I agree. I'm going to go. I mean, Arizona's offensive line is horrible, but I think they're going to take David DeCastro from Stanford.
Pick number 14, the Dallas Cowboys are now on the clock.
Strong safety, Mark Barron of Alabama. I mean, the defense is brutal. Yeah, they signed Brody Poole, but I mean, Barron has an aggressive style. I mean, look at the Alabama defense. When you see how well they were on their way to a national championship, hey, Gay, Saraf, or Steven, they won the national title, and Barron had a lot to do with it. And if Dallas lets him get by them, then they continue to be the idiots of the league. Mark Barron's the pick here for the Dallas Cowboys.
Couldn't agree with you more, Chad. He's definitely going to be the pick there.
Yep, make me number 3 there. You look at what they have at safety. Brodney Poole and Gerald Tintabaugh are their starting safeties as we speak. Yeah, Barron comes in, instantly upgrades the run defense, and he's got enough coverage abilities to obviously be above average in the passing game. So Mark Barron the pick for me as well.
We all agree. I like Mark Barron.
I like Mark Barron.
Hey, real quick, guys, that pick of Mark Barron was brought to you by Peffer Reviews. Peffer Reviews is a site dedicated to bringing you reviews, news, and everything else dealing with movies, TV, music, video games, and books. Visit www.pefferreviews.com. In a review, that is the 4th selection that all 4 of us have agreed with Andrew Luck, Robert Griffin III, Ryan Tannehill, and now Mark Barron. We've all reviewed those 4 picks that are exactly the same. Let's move on.
Pick number 15, the Philadelphia Eagles.
You know, the dream team needed to get pressure on the quarterback in order to take care of their high-priced secondary. They could not get any pressure on the quarterback. That's why they started off so slow, and unfortunately, they missed the playoffs by 1 game. Would love to have seen them in the playoffs. But Melvin Ingram out of South Carolina, 6'2", 276 pounds, comes off the corners well, sounds like a perfect fit for me. Andy Reid gets his guy that can blow off the corner. Melvin Ingram's my pick for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, I'll keep this short and sweet for you. I think Philadelphia goes to Michael Brockers. I know, Doug, you have him going a little bit earlier to Carolina, but I think he falls to the Philadelphia Eagles, and I don't think Philadelphia can pass him up.
I would agree with you. If Brockers is there, he's the pick. I would also say that if Copels is there, he's probably the pick. As you guys know, I went with Drake Kirkpatrick, which if you look at what they currently have at cornerback, you're going to say I'm crazy. Asante Samuel's probably going to get traded. And one of the biggest problems Philadelphia had last year was that they had 3 outside corners and no slot corners. Even though Asante Samuel kind of rates out, depending on who you believe, as one of the top corners in the league, he's the oldest and one of the highest paid of the 3. He's not the highest paid of the 3, but they're basically benching a highly paid corner. Get him traded. You bring in somebody physical in the slot. I can't think of a more physical corner in this draft than Drake Kirkpatrick. And so when teams try to go nickel on the Eagles, now you got somebody who's a force against the run and is obviously more than above average defending the pass as well.
I'm going to go with Courtney Upshaw from Alabama. I do love Alabama, but, I mean, he can play defensive end or outside linebacker, and he's available. I think they should take Courtney Upshaw.
With the 16th pick in the NFL Draft, the New York Jets select Draco Malfoy from Slytherin House of Hogwarts. Now, come on, guys, it's the Jets. You know they're going to screw this up somehow.
They definitely need some kind of devilish guy on that team to offset the holy man Tim Tebow. It's not going to be Draco Malfoy, although, Rob, I give you credit for thinking Rex Ryan might go the evil side. My pick is Courtney Upshaw, like Steven just said, and you've got a guy that can play the down on the outside of a defensive line, and also the outside linebacker where he can stand up. You know, in the Capital Bowl just 2 years ago when they beat Michigan State 49-7, this guy was the MVP with a pair sack and 5 tackles, 3 of them for a loss. Courtney Upshaw is the real deal. A couple of months ago, before this whole draft expert and everybody started doing the combine, Courtney Upshaw was considered a top 10 pick. If the Jets land Courtney Upshaw with pick number 16, in my opinion, I'm afraid because he resembles a Mario Williams type. Doesn't have the explosiveness, but Courtney Upshaw played for Alabama, and they're an NFL factory out there.
I disagree with your pick there, Chad. Here I've got Melvin Ingram going to the New York Jets. He fits Rex Ryan's mold to a T. He's a 3-4 guy, and I can't. If he's there, I can't see the Jets passing this guy up. I think Rex Ryan really likes this type of player.
I'm on board with Vince. I think I have Melvin Ingram still available. That's the way I'm going as well. If Melvin Ingram is gone, I can see Courtney Upshaw being the pick as well. I think it's a pass rusher. I think it's a 3-4 outside linebacker candidate that goes here. The problem I have with Upshaw is the teams are looking at him, as far as a 3-4, they're looking at him as an outside linebacker. I know he played that at Alabama. I don't like how his game translates to 3-4 in the pros. It worked fine. It worked fine at Alabama. The guy's either going to have to lose a little bit of weight or gain just a little bit more of explosion, in my mind, to be a serviceable 3-4 outside linebacker.
Yeah, I'm going to go defense as well. I'm going to go Quentin Coples. I still have him. I don't have him going earlier. I think Jets will take him because I have Courtney Upshaw going the pick before, so I'm going to Quentin Coples.
Pick number 17 from the Oakland Raiders, the Cincinnati Bengals are now on the clock.
Yeah, when you trade a Carson Palmer who was pretty much washed up and you have an Andy Dalton and you've got an A.J. Green, what better thing to do than give Andy Dalton another target? And when you put a Malcolm Floyd and he is still there, even though it is very possible he could go a lot sooner, it makes that Cincinnati offense that much better. And when you play against the Ravens, when you play against the Steelers 2 times each during the season, and you open the season against the Ravens, you need to come up with a target for Andy Dalton to throw to. A.J. Green's great. He's going to get double teamed. You get a Malcolm Floyd. This team could be explosive. I've got Malcolm Floyd, Notre Dame, going to the Cincinnati Bengals.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more, and that's my team, the Cincinnati Bengals. And they definitely do need another playmaker beside A.J. Green. I love the season pickup of Ben Jarvis Green Ellis here also in the off season. For that reason, I think that the Bengals go to wide receiver and draft Michael Floyd also. 6'3", 220. He's going to be a great book. Those 2 guys are going to be bookends for a long time to come in Cincinnati.
The third guy, Michael Floyd, and as former Bengal fan, I would endorse this pick if I was still a Bengal fan.
Former Bengal fan.
Former.
Yeah.
He jumped off the bandwagon.
You know, I don't blame him. He should be a Bills fan.
I'm pretty high on Floyd. I think he could go as high as number 7. Actually, I think he could go as high as number 6 to the Rams. So if he does make it down here, kudos to the Bengals for being able to land him, and just for the same reasons that the gentleman said before me, pairing him, booking him with A.J. Green and having Jordan Shipley working out of the slot, and Jermaine Grisham at tight end. I mean, that's a dynamic, young, explosive offense there in Cincinnati if you do that.
I think Andy Dalton does need some pass protection, and I'm going to go with Cordy Glenn from Georgia. He has good initial quickness and pass protection, and that's what you want. So he can throw to A.J. Green, so I'm going to take Cordy Glenn.
Pick number 18, the San Diego Chargers.
Boy, where do you begin in San Diego? That team needs help on both sides of the ball, on the offense and the defensive line. So San Diego, in my opinion, is going to take Cordy Glenn. Hey, thank you, Stephen, for picking him the pick before. But at 6'6", 340 pounds, I mean, he keeps Phillip Rivers upright, maybe gives him a little bit more time to think about where he's throwing the ball instead of throwing it to the opposite uniform. And Ryan Matthews, this is going to be hopefully his breakout season, especially as a fantasy owner. He needs to have a breakout season because I'm tired of the 90 yards here and then 30 yards the next week, no touchdowns for 17 weeks in a row. Absolutely drives me crazy. Cordy Glenn, Georgia offensive tackle, is my pick for the San Diego Chargers.
Well, I think San Diego, Chad, I think their biggest need is on the offensive line. That's the reason why I went with David DeCastro. I thought where Steven took DeCastro was way too early. I have him falling in the middle of the first round here to the San Diego, whoever they are. Who cares?
Oh.
Not interested. Not after my Cincinnati little sandwich in picks for Cincinnati. So I got DeCastro here.
You're hurting Rob's feelings. You know San Diego's his team.
My token football team.
San
Yes,
Diego
thank
Chargers.
you.
I just didn't want to say it.
Yeah, we just suck. Thanks.
Hey guys, I think DeCastro makes a lot of sense here, and I certainly wouldn't doubt if they went in that direction. I ended up giving them Nick Perry, who I have as the 3-4 outside linebacker coming out of Southern Cal. They tried this a couple of years ago with Larry English. Larry English is not going to work out for him. They signed Jarrett Johnson from the Ravens in the offseason. He's more of a guy that sets to the edge. He's not a pass rushing outside linebacker per se, as he is a run stuffing outside linebacker. You get him and Sean Phillips on each side of each other. You start shoring up that pass rush that was down last year.
Marcus McNeil is no longer with San Diego, and they need a long-term answer at left tackle. I think they take Riley Reef from Iowa.
Just want to throw this out. We're not going to get like Ozzie Gee in trouble for saying DeCastro a lot, all right? Pick number 19, the Chicago Bears.
All right, you guys have already taken him, but I've got cornerback Stephon Gilmore from South Carolina falling all the way. Hey, if he's available, Chicago needs somebody to cover all the receivers in Green Bay and Detroit. It's a no-brainer to me. If Stephon Gilmore's there, that's the pick for the Chicago Bears.
It shouldn't be a no-brainer for you because he's not going to fall that far. My God, you got him falling that far?
Yeah, amen.
Here, I think they still go corner, but I think Kirkpatrick falls down to him here, not Gilmore. I think Gilmore goes way earlier, like I've already picked him going to Kansas City. But I like Drake Kirkpatrick coming out of Alabama, and I think he fits in nicely. To me, he just looks like a Chicago Bear, and that's why I think he's going there.
Guys, I agree with you both. If I had either one of them available, I think scheme fit-wise, you're looking at Kirkpatrick's a better scheme fit, but I don't expect either one to be available. I went with Illinois native Whitney Marcellus as my pick for Chicago. You got Julius Peppers on one side, who's going to be good for a little bit longer, but he's getting a little bit old. And then I believe on the other side is Israel Adonijah. And Adonijah's a fine guy, a fine defensive end to have. But you book in Peppers with Merciless, and then you got a developing inside with Henry Melton and Stephen Paye. I think you're doing yourself a favor by going that direction.
I think Chicago needs definite help on the offensive line, so I have them taking Jonathan Martin.
Pick number 20, the Tennessee Titans.
Gentlemen, when you lose Cortland Finnegan over free agency, you've got to take corner to replace him. I've got Drake Kirkpatrick falling all the way to this spot. And again, you play in that Alabama defense. You are a Cortland Finnegan type player. Maybe not as aggressive as Finnegan, but he fits the role. 6'3", 192 pounds. I got Drake Kirkpatrick, a Tennessee Titan.
I like Doug's pick, the previous pick, and Whitney Marcellus, but I see him going here to Tennessee to fill a big hole for them. They need some help here, and I think this is exactly where they go to the defensive line.
This is where I finally got David DeCastro going. I like him as more of a top, say, 12, 13 type of player. I went with DeCastro not because they need a guard, but because he's working out at center, and they do need a center. We got Steve Hutchinson in the offseason. He's on his last 2 or 3 years, on his last leg. I like DeCastro starting out at center. He's a smart guy. He can make the transition almost immediately. And then as Steve Hutchinson continues his downward slide over the next 1 to 2 years, I believe then you move DeCastro over to left guard and definitely shore up that left side of the line. Another reason I like the pick is because Mike Munchak, of course, their coach, is a former offensive lineman, and he loves his offensive line. So DeCastro, if he's there, makes a ton of sense to me there.
I like Shane McClellan from Boise State. He ran a 4.6 40 at 260 pounds. I think he'll be a good edge rusher, and he's good to play inside. So I think they'll take Shane McClellan.
Pick number 21, the Cincinnati Bengals.
On the clock for the second time in the first round, I've got Cincinnati taking on Dontario Poe, 6'5", 350 pounds. He's got a lot of upside And I think Cincinnati, and when you've got the explosive offense that we all agreed that they're going to take a wide receiver, now you've got to get the defense shored up. And as good as they were last year, they can get better. Dontario Poe, defensive tackle, Memphis, is my selection for the Bengals.
I definitely agree with you here, Chad. I think the Bengals round their first round grade out to about a B here, only for the reason that he does have potential, and if he lives up to this potential, a year or two down the road, this may be an A-plus draft for the Bengals. They're going to grade out probably at about a B by taking Poe, and I like Poe here also.
Gentlemen, I wrestled long and hard because I know the Bengals' history on how they like to draft. They don't mind character risk. I hate to say that. I hated hearing that for all the years I was a Bengal fan, but they don't mind character risk. But secondly, as they've established this trend recently, they love Alabama players. They love SEC players. In my mock, I've got Courtney Upshaw still available, and they want to give Michael Johnson fewer snaps, and they like what they have otherwise the defense bin spot. So I'm wrapping up my explanation kind of quickly here, but I'm going Courtney Upshaw based on the fact that they love their Alabama guys.
And just a quick question for you here, Doug. If that holds true, do you see him possibly taking Adams here from Ohio State? I mean, he tested positive for marijuana at the combine. Why not take him? And it's in their own backyard, so why not take him?
I probably didn't finish my thought. I didn't finish my thought before. The reason I prefaced it that way, is because I see this as being a possible Janoris Jenkins spot. Janoris Jenkins' off-field exploits have him late second round at best. His talent has him in the top 10. His off-field has him second round, if not beyond. Cincinnati's shown time and time again they don't care about that, but I think given the choice between somebody like Jenkins and somebody from, again, Alabama, who can rush the pass a little bit, I would have to think that he'd go Courtney Upshaw and then try to take a chance on a corner in the second round.
I'm taking Doug Martin.
Pick number 22. From the Atlanta Falcons, the Cleveland Browns are now on the clock.
All right, here's Cleveland. They trade their first round last year and to get the Atlanta's first round this year. They gave up Julio Jones in essence, so my opinion, they got to replace Julio Jones. I've got them taking Morris Claiborne, and everybody's saying they got to do something for their offense. They got to do something. That's why they're taking Trent Richardson. Okay, you're going to get a running back in the second round that could probably grade just as high as Trent Richardson. Kendall Wright is my thought here for the Cleveland Browns. And, he's 5'10", 196 pounds, not the biggest guy in the world, but you need a target. And McCoy, we'll find one in Kendall Wright.
Well, if Colt McCoy is indeed their quarterback, and I'm still not sold that is the case, they need somebody to protect him. I mean, he took some vicious hits last year, and I see them going offensive line here and taking Cordy Glenn.
I went with Brandon Whedon, and I do buy that they want to give Colt McCoy one more chance. That being said, you get Brandon Whedon. You bring in a 28-year-old like Brandon Whedon, you're probably starting him day one. As I mentioned earlier in the draft, or mentioned earlier in this mock, the separation between a player like Justin Blackmon and a top 10 receiver like Justin Blackmon and a second-round prospect possibly like a Stephen Hill or a Kendall Wright or a A.J. Jenkins, it's not so significant this year as it was last year when you had Julio Jones and A.J. Green as the clear-cut number one receivers there in the top 10. So I think you take the last, what we would consider pro-ready quarterback of Brandon Whedon here, and you take a chance on a receiver in the second round. So I
was going to say, Vince, is it too early to take Whedon? You've got the fourth pick in the second round.
I think it's way too early to take Whedon. I think you get him in the second round. I think you got other. I mean, listen, we all agree Cleveland is a train wreck and they need a lot of help. And I think Brandon Whedon's going to be there in the second round for him, and I just don't see him taking them that high. I see it. They got to address the offensive line. They have to. I mean, I would hate to be a quarterback that played for Cleveland and get killed like he got killed. Look who's in there. You got the Baltimore Ravens, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers, you got the Cincinnati Bengals. They're all killing this kid. You got to give him some help, and his help is going to come in the form of an offensive tackle.
Right, and that's exactly why I think they'll take Jonathan Martin.
Pick number 23, the Detroit Lions.
All right, the Lions played well enough in this guy played well enough to be a top 10 pick in 2011's draft. But Jonathan Martin's going to fall to this pick. Steven, you've got him going to Cleveland, but I think this first-round prospect stays there in the first round. Jonathan Martin from Stanford is my pick for the Detroit Lions.
Well, I think that Detroit's going to be the second coming of the Cincinnati Bengals, and I think they're going to take some of these players who have some off-field issues like they already have.
Where do you get that idea from? I mean, come on. Now, come on.
I think Janoris Jenkins goes here. I mean, they could go in any number of different ways here, I think Detroit can, but I think they go with Jenkins here as a corner. Like you said, nobody can ever have too many corners, and I think they take the best one at this point.
Guys, I've been mocking tackles to Detroit for years, and I've been wrong every time.
And you've got another one going, right?
And I've got another one going there. Jeff Backus has been a strong. He's been a slightly above average tackle for Detroit for years, and they have to, at some point, if they're going to continue passing the way that they want to pass, they're going to have to bring in a left tackle that's going to succeed Jeff Backus. And I know that they wanted to move Backus to guard at some point if they did bring in a first-round caliber talent at left tackle. And I think Martin being a strong pass protector, maybe not so much a strong pass protector right now as he is. He has a great left tackle build, needs to develop a little bit more. But I can't think of a much better fit for Detroit than a left tackle like Jonathan Martin.
I do like offensive lineman. I like Mike Adams from Ohio State.
Pick number 24, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
All right, the Steelers showed in the AFC wildcard game up against Denver that their defense is starting to age. Maybe it's not necessarily their age. Maybe their coach is aging a little bit. But the head coach, Mike Tomlin, is not of age, and he definitely likes the youth movement. He's going to go with the youth movement here. And Whitney Marcellus from Illinois, defensive end, outside linebacker. Hey, he showed serious upside last year, 16 sacks. They need somebody to be on that defense, like they always do, attack the opposition's offense. I think Marcellus will be the perfect fit for that defense, steel curtain defense.
Well, I'm going to go offense here, Chad, and the reason I'm going offense here is because you've got an elite quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger, and you need to protect him. And I know we just talked about Mike Adams testing positive at the combine for marijuana, but you know, he was up front with everybody. He's completed counseling. I don't think it's going to hurt his draft status, to be perfectly honest with you. So I see him going here to Pittsburgh in this spot right here to help out on the offensive line.
I have Dante Hightower going here, guys, and I think I've had Hightower mocked to the Steelers as long as I can remember. They love their big, physical inside linebackers. I kind of think when I think of what Pittsburgh wants in their inside linebackers, I think of a guy like Levon Kirkland, if you remember him back in about 10 years ago. Hightower's not quite that big, but you're not going to have to worry about somebody like him coming off blocks and making plays, shooting gaps and making plays from sideline to sideline. So I like Hightower here, guys.
Yeah, I got to go offense. You know, they got Mark Pouncey, but they need to protect Big Ben, so I'm going to go with Kevin Zeitler.
Interesting. I like that pick.
Pick number 25, the Denver Broncos.
All right, Tim Tebow needs another running back, so I think they're going to go running back here. Oh, wait. Tim Tebow got traded. They took Peyton Manning, so they don't need any offensive help here because Peyton Manning will, like I said on last week's show, will win you 10 games just by himself. Defense. Denver's, everybody was praised on how well their defense played last year. It's a reason probably why they won 8 games, not Tim Tebow. Yet their defense in New England let them down as they got torched in the AFC divisional round playoffs. So Michael Brockers from LSU, the guy's huge, can plug up the middle. You know, I think at defensive tackle they need the help there. At 6'6", 322 pounds, Michael Brockers from LSU is the guy I think Denver's going to go with.
Chad, I agree with you that they got to go defensive tackle. I think that they reach out to Penn State defensive tackle Devon Still here. He's 6'5", 303 pounds. I think he will fall perfectly into Denver, and this is where I get Denver selecting him right here.
Seem to be in agreement in terms of position. I still have Don Terry Pell, the combine standout, here on the board. Teams have supposedly, I put supposedly in quotes here, went back to the tape over the last month and so and seeing that his combine numbers don't match up with his game tape. I'm one of those that still believes that you put a ton more emphasis on game tape than you do combine numbers. With that being said, how often do you see gentlemen of opposed dimensions and his explosiveness? How often do you have a chance of getting that? You get Poe around the right defensive coaches. His character is not a concern. It's just the lack of production. You get him around the right people, the right coaches. I think you got something there in Denver. As far as Denver's personnel is concerned, I believe they've lost 2 defensive tackles each of the last 2 years. So whatever they did have there, they don't have there now. And they're not. Ty Warren and Kevin Bickerson isn't going to get it done when you're trying to stop the run. So Dontari Poe.
Chad, you said it right when you said Michael Brockers. That's what I'm taking.
Pick number 26, the Houston Texans.
A lot of the talk in Houston is that they're going to take an offensive lineman with this pick. No way. I'm sorry. They have great running back depth with Arian Foster and Ben Tate. They have arguably the best wide receiver in Andre Johnson in the league. But come on, guys. Andre Johnson does not stay healthy. And as a fantasy football owner that traded him away, it's because he doesn't stay healthy. Matt Schaub, who's coming back from injury, needs a target. My opinion, hey, 6'4", big, fast, acts like and is just like Demaryius Thomas from Denver. Stephen Hill from Georgia Tech is my pick for the Houston Texans.
We have the positions correct. We just don't have the guy correct. I have what could be a better bookend for him than to have a small speedster guy over there on the other side of the line of that monster that you traded to me that I keep shaking my head why I made that trade with you.
Because you got Aaron Rodgers, too. That's why.
But I have Kendall Wright going here from Baylor, 5'10", 196 pounds, and boy, does he have some speed. And, Stephen Hill, I like him. He's big, but I think Kendall Wright's the speed guy here, and I think it's a perfect complement to the other side of the bookends here.
Yeah, Chad Vince, I'm with you there. Position right. We disagree on the name that's going to go there. I also did think offensive line. I just don't see any offensive linemen at this point of the draft that makes sense for him. I think somebody like Cordy Glenn is more of a second-round pick, and even if he was there, I don't see him as a fit for Houston's zone blocking system. So I'm going away from offensive linemen there. And as you guys know, a pick near and dear to my heart with these Texans.
His new favorite team.
I think you have to ask yourself, and the point was already made, which was a good point. Andre Johnson, you can't count on him staying healthy. So what you need from this pick, as much as you would like it to be a deep threat, you've got to actually look at, okay, who is the best receiver available, so if and when Andre Johnson gets hurt, this receiver can step in and be our lead receiver, and we're not stretching it, because Jacoby Jones and Kevin Walter as your lead receivers just is not going to work long term. So when Andre Johnson's healthy, give me the best possible prospect there. To me, that prospect is Reuben Randall.
I like Stephen Hill as well. The chat said you got to have somebody to fill in. We don't know if Andre Johnson, if he's going to be hurt or he's going to be on the field. I like Stephen Hill.
Pick 27 from the New Orleans Saints. The New England Patriots are now on the clock.
All right. Even if New Orleans would have had this pick, they probably would have had it taken away from them. So luckily for New England, they received this pick in a trade. And in my opinion, the fifth Alabama Crimson Tide is going to come off the board here. Donta Hightower, he fits the mold. He's 6'4", 269 pounds. He's the perfect fit for that defense that absolutely sucks. And if they get Donta Hightower with their first of 2 picks here late in the first round, I think New England's going to be able to start building a defense and make them even more of a, as much as I hate to say it, a scary team in the AFC. Donta Hightower, Alabama for the Patriots.
Hey, Chad.
Yes.
Chad, tell me again how bad the Patriots defense was.
When Buffalo can score many points against them on September 25th, 2011, which was their Super Bowl, ended their 15-game losing streak. Yeah, that's how bad their defense sucked.
Go ahead, Vince. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I think everybody's obvious. I think they go defensive here, and I got them taking Jarrell Worthy. Although I think they could possibly take Chandler Jones here as well. I think they get both of these guys. I think Jarrell Worthy and Chandler Jones, you can flip-flop the picks either way, but I think these are the two guys New England takes in these two picks with 27 and 31.
Well, thank you for basically prefacing my pick there with Chandler Jones. I'm not quite sure. I think of all the conversion candidates, I think of all the 3-4-3 conversion candidates, Chandler Jones, this is going to surprise you guys a little bit. When I think of Chandler Jones, I think of somebody who could develop into a light version of Willie McGinnis. I see the size. I see the athletic ability. Now, you didn't hear me wrong. I said a light version of Willie McGinnis, not Willie McGinnis, actually.
There are fewer less calories than your regular Willie McGinnis.
64 calories, exactly. Chandler Jones is going to supply a pass rush that they simply didn't have. Whether that's going to be at defensive end or not, I can't tell you. I know Belichick likes to run both defenses if possible. Here with Chandler Jones, you have somebody that can conceivably play a little bit of 3-4 outside linebacker, or he can put on some weight and be a 4-3 defensive end. I just know from watching the Patriots, they need a pass rusher of some sort. When you think that their best linebacker for parts of last year was Rob Ninkovich, help is needed. We'll address the back four with their next pick, but I'm going Chandler Jones.
I have Chandler Jones as well.
Pick number 28, the Green Bay Packers.
Wow, for a team that was 15-1, like the Patriots, their defense, wait for it, sucked. And they couldn't stop the run, even if Steven were to run there, and he's pretty low to the ground. At 6'3", 310 pounds, Jarrell Worthy of Michigan State, he's a run stopper. He can penetrate up the field. I mean, the only concern you have him is once the guys get by him, he's not going to go catch him because he just doesn't have any speed. But Jarrell Worthy from Michigan State's my pick for the Green Bay Packers.
I like Courtney Upshaw here. I think he falls a little bit in the first round. And
all right, let me repeat something you said earlier about my Stephon Gilmore pick. You've got Courtney Upshaw going that low? Are you kidding me? Okay.
Happens every year. It's just my guy that I picked to drop. That's all. But I think at this point in time, when he's on the board there, I think Green Bay cannot pass him up, and they take him.
Guys, my pick here is as Boise State's very own Shea McClellan. When you get a comparison, and I know this guy has skyrocketed up the draft boards here over the last month or so. Sometimes a player just skyrockets because his consistency actually stands out on tape. You have comparisons here to Clay Matthews, and again, just like I said with Chandler Jones, I don't expect another Clay Matthews here. What I do expect is somebody who's going to bring all-out effort like Clay Matthews, who can possibly be a 6 to 8 sack kind of outside linebacker on a consistent basis. And to me, that player is Shea McClellan.
I think they're going to look for a replacement for Cullen Jenkins, so I think they go with Jarrell Worthy.
Pick number 29, the Baltimore Ravens.
The Ravens need to get their offensive line retooled. They got to find somebody to replace Matt Burke. And at 6'5", 315 pounds, Peter Kantz of Wisconsin, raw talent puts him in the first round, but he does have a scary injury history that could actually kick him out of the first round. He has the creaks and crevices of an injured player, but I think Peter Kantz has enough talent to get the Ravens a little excited and move them into the first round with their pick.
I see him going here. I see him going with Nick Perry. I believe that, Doug, you took Nick Perry. You sent him to San Diego early on in the first round, but I have him dropping down to this point, and I see Baltimore taking him because I think he fits in perfectly in their scheme, and I think he could possibly be a guy who takes over. What's that guy's name that's real good there?
Terrell Suggs.
Yeah, him. I think it's a perfect fit for Baltimore.
even with the hesitation, it makes a ton of sense if he's there. Yeah, I'll agree with that. I'm siding with Chad on this one. I'm going Peter Kantz, and there's two reasons I like this pick. First of all, he's among the smartest, if not the smartest player in this draft. Secondly, I should say there's three reasons.
He went to Wisconsin. How smart is he?
Smart guy.
What was his Wonderlic score?
Well, that didn't get leaked out like everything else did. No. Let's see. I think I want to say it was like a 30. I don't take that as don't quote me on that, but I think it was about a 30. Second reason I like Hans is that he has totally lost my train of thought. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that.
All about the Wonderlic. You didn't take it, did you?
Yeah. Not in 15 years or so. I was not a highly thought of prospect. Sorry. Second of all, I like his potential. He's 6'5" and 314 if I remember correctly, which is awfully huge for a center. But what Chad said before about replacing Matt Burke, that's priority number one. It has to be priority number one. Secondly, you have to fill Ben Grubb's spot, and they're wanting to do that in house, but I'm not sure that they want to do that with their current in-house options. So Peter Kahns makes sense to me at center or guard, and since he can play both, it seems to me like you're trying to address two weaknesses with one pick. So Peter Kahn's the pick for me.
I think the Ravens go with a linebacker. They need somebody to replace Ray Lewis. He's getting old. I think they go with Dante Hightower.
Pick number 30, the San Francisco 49ers.
All right, no bones about it. The two tight end explosive offense worked in New England. San Francisco now has a dynamic receiver in Randy Moss and a great tight end in Vernon Davis. The Stanford connection remains. He recruited him, and now he's going to coach him. Kobe Fleener, tight end from Stanford, is going to go to the San Francisco 49ers.
Well, I like him going on the offensive line here. I think who did they lose there on the offensive line? Didn't they lose Adam Snyder? Was that it?
Snyder went to the Cardinals.
He went to Arizona. Yeah. And I think that they shore up that position, and they take Kevin Zeitler here.
Vince, I thought long and hard about Zeitler here. However, I couldn't turn down, and you guys can say it with me, Midwestern State's very own, say it with me, Amini Silatulu.
De Castro.
Right?
Amini, yeah.
Okay, he played tackle at Midwestern State. He's going to transition to a guard. I'm kind of going, when I made this pick, I kind of referenced back to when they took Mike Iupati here a couple years ago from a small school, and they like what they see there. Silatulu is a powerful, powerful man, and that's, if we know anything about Jim Harbaugh, what he loves to do is play power football. And so I think he's going to go for a slight upside here rather than a more finished product like Kevin Zeitler. So I'm going to Silatulu.
But doesn't he grade out in the second round?
Yeah, a couple of my guys do. You're doing that based primarily on his level of competition. I don't think you're going to find too many people that say his talent is second round.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and that's the reason why I take Zeitler here, is because he's coming from Wisconsin, and Silatulu's coming from Midwestern State. So these guys are very, very, very similar in physique. They're both 6'4" and 310, 315.
And Jerry Rice came from Kutztown State, so I mean, came from a low-life state.
Everybody's got an argument for it, but I still think you go with the Wisconsin guy here.
I agree with
Midwestern what? Midwestern what state?
The name of the school is Midwestern.
Well, of course it is. Okay, just checking.
I got Kobe Fleener going. Stanford, Jim Harbaugh. I mean, he knows him at tight end. I think he goes with Kobe.
But they have tight ends on their team.
And so do the dang freaking Patriots, and yet they signed another one in free agency. So what's that tell you?
Well, they got one of the best ones in the game. They got Vernon Davis. Why would they? I just don't see him going that way.
Guys, and I thought long and hard about Kobe Fleener too, because you can rationalize that pick because Vernon Davis is one of the better blockers in the league at his position as well. The problem I have with comparing San Francisco to the Patriots is that the Patriots are going to throw the ball. Alex Smith, what did they do all year last year? They kept him to about 25 attempts per game, and now you're bringing in Randy Moss, Mario Manningham. You're probably going to put Crabtree in the slot.
He can't throw the ball deep, so give him another underneath target. Yeah,
and Kobe Fleener is more of explosive downfield tight end. And not only that, he's not a great blocker, he's not a great blocker yet. I think he can possibly work his way into being a good blocker. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me if you're going to bring in two outside receivers like they did, and then you're going to bring it, and then you're going to say, okay, now we're going to go two tight ends, and that leads me to my second point, which Delaney Walker, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Delaney Walker, he's actually one of the better backup tight ends in the league that very few people have heard about. I do understand the sentiment behind Fleener. It's just that they kind of have a Fleener-like guy in Delaney Walker already.
Pick number 31, the New England Patriots.
All right, my least favorite team in the NFL gets 2 first-round picks. Great. You know, rich can't get richer. But we talked about it earlier. Doug, you've got Chandler Jones going with their first pick. I believe Vince and I are going to agree with this one. I've got Chandler Jones from Syracuse going with the New England Patriots with their second pick.
And just like I prefaced it before when we were talking about their 27th pick, and I took Jarrell Worthy, either one, I think they could flip-flop back and forth here. I don't think that Doug's wrong by having him the 27th pick, Chandler Jones, but I think they're going to get him either at 27 or 31.
I like how you led into that. I don't think Doug's wrong, and then you pause as if for a dramatic effect. I'm going Harrison Smith, Notre Dame here, guys. We saw just how bad the Patriots' pass defense was last year. They had Brandon Merriweather there for a short time, and that obviously didn't end up working out. And as I'm looking at their depth chart here, you have Steve Gregory and Pat Chung as your current starting safeties. Steve Gregory is fine. You don't want him as your starter. Harrison Smith can cover sideline to sideline. Maybe not as great of a run defense as Mark Barron is, but he makes up for it in his ability to cover ground when teams pass. And as we know with the Patriots offense, teams are going to be passing against the Patriots a lot. So Harrison Smith's my pick here.
Yeah, I have him taking, going defense, I have him taking Nick Perry.
With the final pick of the first round of the 2012 NFL Draft, the New York Giants are now on the clock.
All right, the Super Bowl champs have a big concern, and it is glaring, in my opinion, when you've got a bruiser of a running back in Brandon Jacobs leave for free agency, and your best running back, Ahmad Bradshaw, is, one injury away from being out for the year. Oh, wait, that's every year with him because he's out about 10 games every year. Fantasy players, beware. Doug Martin from Boise State is my pick. I mean, he's got great, excellent lateral agility and burst. I mean, great hands. Kind of reminds me of Tiki Barber, and you know what he did in the Giants uniform. Doug Martin, Boise State, goes to the Super Bowl champ New York Giants.
Listen, I don't disagree with your pick there. I like the pick. Living in this area and being a New York fan, I like that pick. I just don't think that's where they're going. I think they have to address a need at tight end. They lost two of their tight ends in the Super Bowl, and I think for that fact they go to Kobe Fleener here. I see the argument for going running back. Believe you me, I think I've got Ahmad Bradshaw on one of my fantasy teams, and I understand that. But I also see something here that maybe some of you guys don't see or maybe you do see. They got a guy by the name of Darrell Scott, and I think Darrell Scott can become that guy in New York. I don't think you need to draft that position. I think you've got that position already. So for that reason, I go Kobe Fleener here.
Gentlemen, you've touched on the two guys that I was probably considering strongest for this pick. There's a tight end coach for the Giants. His name's Mike Pope, and all he's done over the years is develop guys like Jeremy Shockey. The Giants know that they can get away with a late round or free agent guy at tight end, and then they brought in Martellus Bennett, who I think is as good, if not better, than any prospect in this draft. I decided to go away from Kobe Fleener on this one.
I understand what you're saying. I don't mean to interrupt you, but Kobe Fleener is the number one tight end coming out. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that.
Okay. And to go running back and go to Doug Martin, do you think that may be a reach here? I mean, he's like a 1-2 to me. I still like Kobe Fleener here. I think anytime you can take the number one guy at his position and you draft last in the first round, I think you do it.
Vince has a gut feeling again. Here we go,
Oh,
folks.
no.
It's no different than when you do your fantasy draft.
Absolutely.
Hey, Vince, I hear you on Darrell Scott. The problem with Darrell Scott has been his durability over the years. I don't know that he's finished the season that he started in for as long as I can remember. When he's available, he's as good of a talent as they have on that team. as I was telling Chad last night, I don't necessarily buy the Ray Rice comparisons with Doug Martin. I've said before that I can see why they are compared. Ray Rice is more explosive. Doug Martin's slightly more powerful. And so anyway, what brings me back to the Giants making the pick of Doug Martin here is Ahmad Bradshaw's durability, Darrell Scott's durability. Doug Martin's got a little bit more power. Brandon Jacobs is now gone. You're going to want somebody. You don't want Bradshaw touching the ball more than 15, 16 times a game, and as long as Tom Coughlin's around that they're going to want to run the ball. That's why even if it's a slight bump up in terms of draft stock where he might be a high second rounder, to me, the 32nd pick in the draft is essentially a second rounder. So I'm going Doug Martin there, guys.
Steven?
Yeah. I got him going defense.
And that brings us to the end of another episode of The Real Sports Jam. Be sure to friend us on Facebook at facebook.com/The Real Sports Jam and follow us on Twitter at TRSportsJam, or even email us at TheRealSportsJam@gmail.com. We'd like to thank the Danny Nagy Band for our theme song and invite you to listen to our next show, which will be online starting next Monday at noon. Until next week, you've been listening to The Real Sports Jam. We're out.